Welcome to more adventures of Bud Nupel with part 1 of Telepathically Bankrupt. The fall of '84 had been one of those rare Northwest autumns, bright sunny days and no rain. The fall leaves were beautiful flaming shades of red and orange that glowed in the dazzling sunlight. I was glad to finally have a couple of days off from sitting idly in my cab. The mountains had been calling to me, so at last I would answer the call. It was the perfect weather for a hike in the Cascades. I had turned in my cab at midnight the night before, so I could get an early start on the day. I was on the road by 8 a.m., which was early for me. The bad part was I had to deal with the Monday morning rush hour, but at least I was going against the traffic. It was just after 9 as I took the Edgewick Road exit off I-90 east of North Bend. It made me remember a dream I had last night. I met this guy who called himself Bud Nupel. He said he was a space traveler. Or was it a traitor? No, he was a trader. Anyway, I can't remember much else about it. I drove the windy road along the river and then took the left turn up towards the trailhead. I remembered the last time I had been on this road back in 1980. I had a cab fare that took me all the way out here. That was the most money I ever made driving cab. I started thinking about my dream again when I suddenly had to slam on my brakes. A deer had appeared out of nowhere and stood in the middle of the road blocking my way. I had stopped just short of hitting it. The deer stood and stared at me and then quietly walked off into the forest. And then I saw it. A large, shiny object just off to the left was parked in a small clearing. What the? I thought to myself. I stared transfixed at it. I'm not sure how long I was staring, but suddenly there was a pop in my head. It was as if a mental block had been removed. Forgotten memories flooded my brain. This was the exact location where I had first gone aboard Bud Nupel's spaceship. It was all coming back to me now. That was not a dream last night. That was my memory. The small clearing was exactly as I remembered it. There, in apparently the same location, was his spaceship. This is awfully curious, I thought. I remembered Bud explaining to me how through the use of telepathy, he could keep his ship hidden. But I was seeing it plainly right in front of me now. That must mean Bud is here too, I figured. I stopped my engine and looked around. There was no sign of Bud or anyone for that matter, just the spaceship. It was definitely Bud's ship. I'd recognize that anywhere. I got out of my car and walked over towards the clearing where the ship was parked. I came within 10 feet of the front hatch and studied it. I had no way to open it. The ship looked like it had been parked there for some time, as the blackberry vines appeared to be growing over it. I walked around the entire spaceship, wondering what it was doing here. The first time I had seen Bud must have been at least 4 years ago. He had made a proposal to me then. He wanted me to come with him on his travels and work as his driver when he arrived at his various locations. He asked me to think about it, and we could discuss it when he returned. I seem to remember when he did come back, he was rather ill. But that's another story. My memory isn't very clear on that. I wonder if he's ill again. I looked around some more. I remember on his first visit, he alluded to some business he had to take care of first, though he hadn't offered me any details. I wonder if something might have gone wrong with that business, I thought as I completed my inspection of his ship. I was about to give up and get back in my car when the hatch suddenly let out a hiss. I stood there and watched as the door slowly opened. When it was fully raised, I expected to see Bud, but there was no one there. A humming sound drifted from the doorway. I ventured up the ramp and peered in. The storage area was virtually empty. "Bud," I called out. I called out a second time, "Bud?" And then I heard a faint reply coming from the other room. I decided to go in and find out what was going on. I walked cautiously through the door to his living quarters. There was Bud, lying on his bed, looking worn and tired. "I was afraid I wouldn't be able to contact you," he said in a raspy voice. "I'm in a lot of trouble, James. We're all in a lot of trouble." "What is it, Bud?" I asked. "I'll explain everything to you, but first, you must get me out of here and take me away so I can regain my strength," Bud implored me. "Sure, Bud, I'll get you out of here." I helped him sit up and then slid his legs to the floor so he could stand up on his own 2 feet. He was obviously weak, but was able to walk and keep his balance by holding on to me. We walked down the ramp, and then Bud turned to face his ship. The hatch closed, and with what appeared to be a great effort, Bud was able to turn his ship invisible. "Okay, take me to your place, and I'll explain on the way," Bud said, with some urgency in his voice. I helped Bud into the front seat of my car. He seemed to be wearing the same clothes I remembered from his first visit, wingtips and all. After helping him with the seatbelt, I got in the car, did a U-turn, and headed back to Seattle. I guess I would have to enjoy my fall hike on another day. When I got back on I-90, heading towards Seattle, Bud finally spoke up. "It's terrible, James. And I should have known, but I foolishly refused to believe it." Bud started his story. "When did I first encounter you?" Bud asked me. "It was back in the winter of 1980, I replied. Yes, that is correct," Bud said thoughtfully. "Well, you may find this hard to believe, but I first discovered the cellulose gold mine on your planet back in the year you call 1930. "Wow, that was over 50 years ago," I said. "Yes, as you recall, your time is experienced differently by me, so 1930 is more like 20 years ago in my understanding," Bud tried to explain. "I spent my time in the forest of Idaho on that first visit. There, I met a man named Robert Bowling, who was much like you, actually, but he worked in the lumber business in Idaho. Have you ever heard of him?" Bud asked me. "Nope, can't say that I have." I scratched my head and wondered who the heck was Robert Bowling, and what did he have to do with anything? "No, I suppose not," Bud muttered to himself. "He was an engineer at the Potlatch Corporation in Lewiston, Idaho back then," Bud continued. "It was with my help and guidance that he invented the Presto log. The rest, I should say, is history." Bud paused and looked as if he was remembering old times. "Lucky guy," He must have gotten very rich off that invention, I noted out loud. The sunny day had turned to rain. I flipped the switch on my windshield wipers. I guess it was fortunate that I ran into Bud. I hadn't come prepared to hike in the rain, and besides, he really seemed like he needed my help. Bud resumed his story. James, you have to believe me. I have always been careful to guard the secret of your planet. I would never divulge the location or the riches that are found here. Never. I could see Bud was regaining his strength as he practically yelled to drive his point home. I know you wouldn't, Bud. I tried to comfort him. He was obviously becoming more agitated as his energy was restored. I did everything I could to evade anyone who might try to follow me here. I took double and triple precautions to ensure no tracking devices were installed on my ship, but alas, it wasn't enough. Bud sighed and stared blankly out the window. Are you saying you are in danger? I was starting to get worried. Exactly and precisely. We were crossing the floating bridge over Lake Washington and heading to my place on Beacon Hill. I underestimated my adversary, James. They have been tracking me ever since I brought the first Prestolog back in 1930. They are here, James. They have been for 55 years. Who's here, Bud? I asked. Why, the government. To be continued.